commercial brokerage business. It's very different from investor, dream, operator. When did you decide to pivot?
That would have been right around my start date. I think we bought that one in June and I had started that February. I see a lot of people hop in with the expectation of filling 10 to find out that site plans won't be approved, zoning will no longer allow it. One of the counties here locally, a big thing is they don't allow single wides anymore.
Hello everyone and welcome back to The Path of Progress. I'm your host Alex Kononov, and today guest brings powerful mix of brokerage expertise and real estate investing experience to the table. I'm excited to be joined by Edwin Byler, a commercial real estate broker and investor based off Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Edwin started his investing journey in 2019 and made the move into brokerage shortly after. Since then, he's transacted over $50 million in commercial real estate and built a portfolio that ranges from single-family rentals to industrial properties across North and South Carolina. Edwin, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Well, that was an excellent intro. Thank you so much. Honestly, Alex, I'm super excited to be on here and talking to you. And excited to get into conversation.
I'm glad you liked it. So let's start from the top. What initially pulled you into real estate in 2019?
Yeah, absolutely. So honestly, initially I grew up, without money, and it was an area of contention for my family in some areas. And that's what sparked, getting rich, honestly, like just trying to make some money. And things have changed since then. That's not the sole focus. But when I was looking around, what made sense or what was different about real estate in particular in terms of the industry, it just seemed so tangible. And it also seemed very flexible. When I started to get into it a little bit more, there's always multiple entries, there's multiple exits, there's multiple ways to make money off of real estate. And there's there's all kinds of advantages, right, when we talk about the tax and the cash flow and all that other stuff. And I think just kind of the deeper my understanding became of the industry and of real estate, the more I like it, and that continues to be true today.
Yeah. So how did you start? You started from brokerage or you started to be an investor, right? What was your first property?
Yeah, my first property ever was a single family house that I purchased. It's like 30 minutes outside of Winston, just a little single family that I bought. There was a tenant in it, so I had to evict him, fix it up, burn it, and yeah.
You had full experience, right, from the first one. Do you still have that property?
No, I sold that one in 2023, summer of 2023.
Love it. So tell us a little bit about numbers. Did you make money on it?
Absolutely. So I bought the property for $36,000. It'll tell you the market I was in. It was a 3-bed, 2-bath. I paid $36,000 for it. That was a good deal too, but still insanely cheap. I ended up putting about another 15-ish into it. Mind you, I didn't know much at this point, Alex. So I was, going to Lowe's, buying the things, going over there, painting the walls myself and all that stuff. I didn't know. And ended up putting about 15, probably 20 into it, honestly, when everything was said and done. Held on to it. It cash flowed great for, 4 years almost that I had that property, and then ended up selling it at $168 on the back end. So yeah, excellent equity.
Oh, love it. And it was cash flowing all the time, right? You had some tenants there in place? Oh, you lived there?
And when there was tenants there. So I bought it 36, put 20 into it. When I went and refied it, it appraised around 100. I pulled out right at 70,000 and then used that money to continue investing. But in the meantime, just let a tenant sit in there.
So you 2 times round tripped on that property. First time you did refinance and then you exited sale on this property.
I did.
I love it. So you're in full cycle.
It was the first deal ever. Ended up being a home run. So yeah, it was a good deal.
Love it. So what after that? What was your next deal? Did you go buy another property or did you jump right into commercial brokerage?
So yeah, after that one, I bought another property. I used the $70,000 to buy a little 6-unit mobile home park. I got it seller financed. They wanted $35,000 down. So I gave them the 35 and then I used the remaining of that money. There was 2 units vacant there, and I used that remaining money to fix up those units. Slowly, it was over the course of about a year. I wasn't very aggressive with it at all. But yeah, got that one up and occupied and running. And then at that point, that's when I realized that this is real, this works, I can do this. And then that's when I went full-time into real estate through brokerage.
You got another proof of concept. So tell us a little bit more about this mobile home park. How did you move from single family house to a mobile home park with 6 units? Where did you get the knowledge and understanding of how to run those projects?
For sure. So there was I worked at a tire shop at the time, just a normal W-2. And there was some people that would come in that owned mobile home parks. And of course I would talk with them. I worked there from ages 17 to ages 21. And so, you get to know the same people. They watch you grow up. And so there was some people that used to come into the shop that had parks. right about the same time I purchased my mobile home, I'm sorry, my single family, my older brother was getting into real estate on the mobile home park side. So, of course, he was a huge resource for knowledge. But honestly, a lot of it, looking back now, a lot of it, we just didn't know. Not me or my brother. We just, is very North Carolina backwoods, good old boy type of deals, handshake deals. And yeah, just kind of bootstrapped it and figured it out.
Love it.
On
Those are the best. Did you have additional lands there? Did you expand your mobile home park, or you kept it at 6 units? That's what it is.
it stayed at six. When I bought it, it was six, four of which were occupied, two of which weren't. So I just got those 2 units back up and running.
And did you make money on that deal?
Yeah, that was another good one. I paid 170 for it. I put probably another 30 into it. It cash flowed really heavy. I had the rent roll up at around 3,800, and my payment was like 1,100. So small numbers, but it cash flowed well. And then I ended up selling that one. I actually sold that one at 290 with 200,000 up front, and then I owner financed the remaining 90 grand.
I always have problems selling stuff. When I buy properties, it's always such a hard feeling to sell something when it's cash flowing and it's fully operating. How do you make a decision that you want to sell it? Was it like such a good deal that it was hard to pass on it, or you were like done with it already?
So there was a happy combo of both. Honestly, part of me felt like I'm done with this thing. I just want to get out. It was the first one. I had learned so much and made so many mistakes throughout the park that even like I made so many mistakes, had a battle with a tenant for 8 months, all kinds of fun stuff. By the time I got it stable, I was kind of ready to let it go, honestly. But really, it wasn't about that either. I knew I had equity. I knew I wanted to go bigger. And I'm very not married to properties. If I can get a good cost basis, I'll turn it as quick as I can and let go of it and keep
Love it. I think
reinvesting.
it's the best. Don't get too emotional attached to the property. This is rule number one. And so what happened? So you went from single family residential, now you were going to commercial because it's 6 unit and it's mobile home, it's already commercial property. What was your next step?
The next one from there, honestly, I wanted to rinse and repeat. So I'll break down very quickly what happened and we can dive into it if you want. But I refi the single family, use that money for the down payment, use the rest of the money to fix it up. Now I got a cash flow in park, there's equity in it. That for me was the real light bulb because it wasn't my own money, right? This was money I had put into another property. It was proceeds from that property. So that was a big light bulb moment for me. So my next step from there really was just rinse and repeat, but go bigger. And I ended up finding a 50-unit mobile home park in Lexington, and we negotiated some seller financing on it. And that was my next purchase. It was me and my older brother. We went in 50-50, raised funds for the down payment, bought a 50-unit, and yeah, we're actually under contract to sell that one right now. So I still have it today, but hopefully not for long.
Wow. And it was back in 2020, 21?
This would have been, 21. I believe this would have been 21 when I bought the 50
Oh,
unit.
love it. Okay, so all your real estate experience. I like how you progressed in your journey. You from single family, you got mobile home parks. Now you got bigger mobile home parks. You develop and you learn how to do it from one. Then you learn how to do it a bigger scale, and now you jumped on an even bigger property and you succeeded at that as well. At what part of your journey did you decide that you want to go to start this commercial brokerage business?
Yeah.
Because it's very different from what, investor, dream, operator, and everyone selling this dream. Hey, be a real estate investor, invest passively, or be active on the deal, but, solely do that kind of thing. When did you decide to pivot?
So honestly, I pivoted prior to buying the 50 unit. That would have been right around my start date. I think we bought that one in June and I had started that February, I believe, if my timelines are correct. So I had started not long before that. Honestly, the move to jump into real estate full time was once I had that single family and that 6 unit, I had sustenance, right? And I realized it was real. I also had a little bit of cash flow back in me at that point. So I felt a little safer to leave, and I was also capped at my W-2, which I'm never okay with, right? If I'm at the cap, like I want to pivot so I can go larger, go bigger, go better, go something, right? But I don't want to be capped. And yeah, just those two things. Brokerage at the time, there was still a lot that I needed to learn around deal hunting, around operations, contracts, all that. And I felt that it'd be a really good way to get my education while earning an income going into brokerage. The plan was never to stick with it with brokerage. I just wanted to get in, use it to learn the business, use it to make some money, and get back out. But I implemented some strategies within real estate that proved really, really effective, especially on the commercial side. That led to me having a lot of business, which led to me getting another broker or two. So
So just to clarify, you became a real estate agent, just focusing on commercial assets, right? Or you opened your brokerage.
Initially, when I was an agent first for a couple of years before I opened a brokerage. And initially, first getting in, I was just a residential realtor. That was it. With my investment experience, I knew how to look at properties, underwrite them to some extent, and I had more off market. So it was kind of more of a natural progression over onto the investment side of things. And now I'm not even a realtor. I'm just a broker. I don't do anything residential. So it was kind of a natural progression.
So tell us, how did your brokerage grew? And you mentioned to me before that it transacted over $50 million in deals. What is your usual path? Do you still actively doing the brokerage side? You still transact deals? Or you more like on a slow burner while you focusing on investment?
Yeah. So most of my focus today is on the investment side of things. When I was getting started in brokerage, I guess it's probably about a year into brokerage, I noticed there's just a big lack of deals, right? Every multifamily investor is going to agree with that. There's a lack of good off market deals that aren't daisy chained between like three or four different people. And so there was a system called Reonomy. You may be familiar. But I just used that, honestly. It was a part of our brokerage. And I decided, you ever heard of the 80-20 rule? This was my 20%, right? So I decided if I just focus on cold calling owners, I will find deals, and there's always buyers out there. And that's kind of what launched it. I made a lot of cold calls, spent a lot of time refining scripts. I played with VAs, trying to get them to cold call for me, and all these other routes. Once I was able to kind of narrow that down a little bit and consistently produce good off-market multifamily deals, that's when everything just blew up. Because as many as I can find, I'll sell. Right. And that's also when I got to a point where the investment stuff was starting to take off a little more. I was gaining my footing there. And so I elected to kind of take a little step back from brokerage and just essentially feed my brokers a couple of deals here and there. Today, as it sets, I still transact my older brother's stuff for him. He's a part of a group. So I'll still transact his stuff. And then I've got another guy who's a good client and friend of mine whose stuff I still transact. But apart from that, I don't do much in terms of like the day-to-day brokerage work.
Yeah, it makes sense. You should focus. I mean, one way or another, we should all pick a battle, right? We can be all over the place. But tell us a little bit more about your portfolio nowadays, what it looks like. You mentioned you had some single families, you have some commercial properties. Besides that, what is it right now? What are you focused on what kind of assets?
Yeah, absolutely. So actually, as of today, my portfolio would be the 50 unit park. I've got two more parks down in Salisbury. I've got a retail industrial strip center in Kannapolis. And then some other various, I got some multifam scattered around, 100 units, give or take, 28,000 square foot retail industrial. And then I'm a partner on some other stuff, very small, partner, but on some other multifam and retail.
And what types of commercial assets are you mostly excited about right now?
Right now, mobile home parks. That's my number one right now is mobile home parks.
Do you have a sweet number? Like, you're looking at least this many pads or trailers that you're looking for?
I'm very open because if it's something small like 10, I won't go below 10. But if it's like 10 and up, up probably to 30, then that's something that I would buy personally. And then I've got a partner out in Raleigh that if it's larger, obviously I would transact with that gentleman. So and this is me and a partner doing this. So, but essentially we have a money guy that we go to if the park's a little bit out of our pockets, I
And
guess.
for our listeners, we mentioned already a few times. Can you describe mobile home park, what it is, and
Absolutely.
how we can understand this is a good deal?
Absolutely. So the mobile home park itself, essentially, big plot of land, bunch of mobile homes, all on the same parcel, right? That's the gist of it. There's two different ways you can do a mobile home park. That is either renting the unit itself and be very similar to renting out an apartment, or just renting the dirt underneath it where the tenants own the home. I prefer the latter just because of the maintenance or lack thereof, I guess, on a pad only park. But yeah, that's really the target for me is pad only mobile home parks right now.
I like it what you said. Also, renting George because less maintenance, and I'll explain to folks why it is less maintenance because people own their houses, and you introduce this concept of home ownership pride. Right, people live there. Naturally, they'll try to fix it. There is no one to call to fix and take care of the property but themselves. And now you have less repairs on your hands, and naturally, people will do it. So, tell us what happens if someone doesn't take care of the property, and you have 49 beautiful, mobile home parks, and you have one rundown trailer. What do you do there?
So there's going to be a standard lease for the ground regardless. In that lease, there will be language about keeping your house clean. There will be restrictions on how long the yard can go, whether trash can set out, those types of things. When we see a violation of that, they're served with a fine and a notice, kind of similar to like an HOA would do. If that's not rectified, we unfortunately have to look at eviction.
And how long does it take in your area where you invest?
30 days, give or take, for an eviction.
Okay, so you evicted someone with the trailer sitting on your lot. So what do? You just hook up it to the tow truck? What happens in that case?
So it depends. They have full right to take that. There's a period of time in which they can come back. So let's say we did the eviction's finalized, they're out. There's a period of time in which they can come back to the property and take any personal property. That could be belongings from plates and dishes, and it can be cars, including the trailer that's there on the lot, right? All of that falls within personal property. So there's a certain period of time in which they have to come collect that. And that goes for the trailer, right? They can hook up and haul it off. That's totally fine by me. What ends up happening a lot of times, because it is very expensive to move those things, is they won't end up moving them, in which case typically I'll try to work with the tenant on getting them back their trailer. What happens more times than not is the tenant just isn't able to do it and they just walk from it, in which case I inherit the trailer. And yeah, in that instance, I'll fix it back up. I'll just sell it off to another tenant and continue renting the land.
So basically you own the home. So if someone want to refuse to take it off your land and they don't want to take it, and you try to work out deal with them and, hey, listen, I'll make you some payment plan so you can keep it just to catch up with the payments that you owe me. But they're like, nope, we're not going to do it. And they just take off. And when you have judgment for eviction, do they also have financial judgment for those people? Can you hold on the trailer because of that financial judgment? How does it work?
So no, you can't necessarily hold the trailer for the financial judgment. You can go through a financial judgment and place one on that person, and I have done that before. However, I don't find that that's typically very successful. I mean, just like, I don't mean to be any certain type of way, but just like typically the person that's, living in the park and is okay with being evicted also isn't going to care about a judgment against them, and you'll probably never get that money anyways. So if it was a large enough amount, potentially so, but typically speaking, the home is going to rectify anything, and it's not very often they actually take that.
So when you lease this spot for a new tenant, right, do you go through some due diligence on underwriting? Who is the tenant, right? Do you do some background screening for the people? Do you have some requests, for requirements for their credit score or any other type of requirements you have?
Yeah, absolutely. So in terms of credit score, honestly, that's not a big thing. I like to see a 600 and up, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. I more care about looking at the credit report and seeing what they were late on, what caused their credit to drop. In terms of income, yeah, they've got to have 3x the monthly amount for a trailer, 6x for just the dirt of monthly income. And then apart from that, honestly, just a quick background check, and that's pretty much it. I use Tenant Cloud for all of these. That's my software that I use. So essentially you just send them a link and they'll go through it themselves, pay for it themselves. And that's about the extent of my due diligence.
Do you manage your parks by yourself, or do you have a property manager on site, or you just do asset management? How does it work for you?
Well, we have third-party management on.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when you just do asset management. So you just have calls with them, make sure everything in line, and you move on to the right projection. Have you ever had chances that you need to fire a property manager?
Definitely.
From one of your trailer parks?
Definitely. Yeah. We've had that quite a few times, actually. Property management is probably one of the, outside of actually finding deals, I think proper property management is probably second in line in terms of difficulties. I'll put it that way. Maybe GCs, but close. But yeah, we've unfortunately, we've definitely had to let some of them go.
So what would be the reason to fire someone?
Honestly, it's typically lack of care or violation of the agreement we have signed to some extent. I'm not super quick to fire a PM just because of the introduction process between when I hire them and when they get to know the tenants, all the systems they have set up. I'm not quick to fire a property manager. However, if, for example, right, we have biweekly meetings with our PMs, and if there's issues, I guess, with that are not being rectified or there isn't movement on them, unfortunately, we don't have an option but to go a different route. But oftentimes I just see a lack of general care. They'll let trash set out, just won't take care of the property, more or less.
And do they have usually someone living on site as a property manager, or it depends on the size of a probably community, right?
Yeah, it depends mostly. I don't have anybody living on site in any of my parks. It's all third party, but it definitely depends. I would say probably 40, 50 and up, it's a good route to go, keeping somebody in the park. that's assisting with management repairs.
So if you have 50 plus units, you probably should consider having some maintenance on site,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, typically speaking, yeah.
Okay. Who take care of the property, who's like kind of your rule and law on the property, your representative basically.
Correct. Yeah.
So share with us, what other challenges do you face in mobile home parks on a day-to-day operations?
Yeah,
Tell
for
us
sure.
the most bright ones.
Yeah. So honestly, a lot of the I guess downfalls with mobile home parks lie in zoning and in utilities. If you have all public utilities, cool. That's a huge question mark out of the way, right? But overall, most counties, cities don't like to see mobile home parks. I see a lot of instances where maybe it was a 30 unit and there's five vacant, or there's 10 vacant, and somebody goes in buying a 30 unit park, right? Well, that's not the case because that the pads are there, right? However, that's not what currently exists today. So I see a lot of people hop in with the expectation of filling 10 to find out that site plans won't be approved, zoning will no longer allow it. One of the counties here locally, a big thing is they don't allow single wides anymore. So if there was a single wide on it and that lot becomes vacant for more than 6 months, you can't pull a single wide back on. You have to go back with a double wide. A double wide requires, typically speaking, a different septic system. If it's a 3 or 4 bed, it's going to like all this infrastructure is going to have to change for it as well. And so that's a big, I guess, pitfall that I see a lot of people hit. And then the other one is regarding utilities. If you have all city, excellent. However, if they're private utilities, you'll run into issues on wells, especially if there's one well feeding multiple homes. If there's ever some contamination or something like that found in that, the city can come in and essentially require a monthly inspection that you'll have to pay for just indefinitely. And they're not cheap. $500-600 a month would be pretty typical. And they can just force you to do that, right? So you just have to do your due diligence, call down to the city, make sure there aren't issues. Very similar with septic systems. A lot of these parks were built 70s, 80s, 90s. I think a lot has changed since then. So I'll typically see, or I guess oftentimes see, where maybe there's like one septic system that's a community and there may be 5 or 6 trailers hooked to it. The issue is if that septic system fails, or rather when that septic system fails, that's no longer to code. So you'll have to go back. Let's say there's 8 homes on one septic. You'll have to go back and put in 8 septics, which is expensive. But your real challenge lies in the fact that you now have to have 8 leach fields, 8, repair areas. If you don't have room for that, you're going to have to start cutting lots. So even though there was 8, due to septics or whatever, you may only be able to come back with 2 or 3 or 4 or none. Who knows? But yeah, those are 2 of like the biggest ones probably. And if you know what to look for, it's not hard to find out. They're just typically missed.
So local regulations and utilities is still the most problematic in the space.
Correct. Yeah.
Very interesting. And you mentioned something interesting about the age of the properties. When you look for mobile home parks, when you're looking for something they want to purchase, do you look for the age of the mobile home park community, or it doesn't really matter because every trailer is individual?
Yeah, to me, it really doesn't matter. The age of the homes would matter more if I'm purchasing them. But even so, like trailers, you can strip them down to nothing. And pretty much, you can strip them down to the steel frame pretty much and rebuild them for not a ton of money. So it is a factor I do look at. It's never been a deal breaker in a deal, is the year.
Okay.
Whereas like
It's more like a negotiation point, right, for you?
Yeah.
Yeah, versus like in multifamily, we're looking something in the 1970s and up, right, and younger, even now in 1980s probably. That's because the main factor is what institutional money is looking for, right? Is it what kind of unit count and what age of they'll be interested to buy. And in future, if you'd like to sell, you have much bigger buyer pool because everyone looking at the same North Star, let's say.
Yeah, absolutely.
To understand. So let's talk about your market now. What trends do we see opportunities in South and North Carolina, and in what areas specifically are you focused on?
Yeah, for sure. So we'll start with North Carolina. The coast of North Carolina is weird. I lived about a year out in Wilmington, and Wilmington's a very hot market. However, if you go 20 minutes inland, like just across the Cape Fear River, you'll find houses cheaper than what I can buy them here in Winston. And Winston's a cheap market in comparison to any other major cities here in the state. So you'll find very cheap houses, 3.2s with a garage for $250, right? So the coast is a bit weird. However, people have had a lot of success out there. I never have had as much out at the coast. Where I'm really, really bullish is if you start at Charlotte and follow I-85, Interstate 85 up to Raleigh. If you're driving, it's about a 2 hour, 2.5 hour stretch. Everything along there is where I'm the most bullish for North Carolina. There's something to be said for Asheville. There's something to be said for Wilmington. There's something to be said for Fayetteville. But for me, my strategy, holding a lot of these for several years, that's where I'm really, really bullish is up that I-85 stretch. So you think Charlotte, Concord, Kannapolis, Salisbury, Winston, Greensboro, and then out towards Raleigh, Cary, and honestly everything in between, the small cities.
Is there only big cities are you looking for? You just mentioned small cities as well. Is there a minimum population size you're looking to invest in your mobile home parks, for example?
No, not for me personally. I do need to make sure, like if it's a 6,000, 10,000 population town and there's nothing surrounding, then no, I typically won't look at it. But where I've found my success is not in the major areas. It's not in Raleigh or Charlotte. Where I've found success is, 10 to 30 minutes outside those big areas.
Okay. Looking for proximity to MSAs, right?
Absolutely.
Some major MSAs, metro statisticals area. In 10 to 30 minutes, you said the commute that would be feasible to have a mobile home park that
Correct.
will still get a tenant pool from the city, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so we covered North Carolina. What about South Carolina?
South Carolina, so I don't do as much in South Carolina, but the areas I'm most bullish are Greenville and surrounding, and then Spartanburg and surrounding. There's a lot of growth in Greenville, especially. It's just a really, really cool city, very innovative. A lot of new everything really, and there's a lot of old businesses too, like with the BMW plants and all that stuff down there. Big car manufacturing plants down there. That's a big piece of it. But there's a ton of growth that's fed off of that as well. I've seen massive growth down there, but that's pretty much it. Is the Spartanburg area and Greenville area for South Carolina.
Yeah, and do you see a lot of like development going on? You just mentioned some development going on, and you're bullish in that area. But do you see any new manufacturing popping up, or new IT centers coming along in Charlotte and other cities?
Yeah.
What do you see right now as being boots on the ground?
Yeah, for sure. So I'll speak to North Carolina on this one. South Carolina, I'm not very boots on the ground there, but I'll speak to North Carolina on this one. Yes, absolutely. There's a ton of progress. I mean, you can look once again almost anywhere up that I-85 stretch, I-70, stuff like that. You can look at any of these towns' comprehensive plans and see what's coming in. But we just had a $1 billion Toyota plant go in just outside of Greensboro. Google's building a new big headquarters up in Hickory, North Carolina, which is a little bit more mountainous. It's not a place we've really seen something large like that come in. And there was a big Chewy plant opened up, and all kinds of manufacturing, really.
You just casually dropped very important information. A comprehensive plan. For our listeners, can you expand a little bit how people can find out this information?
Absolutely.
Who they need to talk to in the city, and where do they look for it?
Yeah, absolutely. So a quick tip, if you guys are looking for information on cities, first of all, go to ffiec.gov, I believe it is. That'll allow you to pool population, income, and all of that throughout the year. So you'll be able to see steady growth. It'll give you some details there. But then a city's comprehensive plan is something I don't hear many people talk about it for some reason, but it's been very valuable to me. Essentially, pretty much every city, as far as I know, every city has a comprehensive plan. It may be 15 years, 20 years, 40 years, whatever. Typically, there's a large PDF file on the city's website that you can just pull. But in cases where that isn't an option, you can call up to zoning planning and you can get a real quick brief rundown. You can even call zoning planning. This is something I do quite a bit, but I'll call zoning planning and say, hey, I've got this piece of land. What's the plan for it? What are we doing here, right? And it may be a situation where I can switch zoning and make a profit or something like that. But yeah, every city's got a comprehensive plan. They have an idea of what, maybe not parcel by parcel, but they have an idea of what this section of land should be used for and this section of land. And you'll get a lot of good insight as to, a lot of the businesses that are coming in, what they're targeting, are they targeting the health industry or tech, or, you get a lot of those good insights, and it really helps. Honestly, it helps keep it front of mind. You pay attention to what's going on around you too.
Just to add to that point, I mean, go to City Hall and ask for a master plan for the city. Yep. Usually they have for 10 to 15 years, 20 years ahead, and then they showcase what they're planning for the city. Either they're going to revitalize downtown, or they want to focus on now some suburb neighborhood area and make it nice, chic, and boutique, because there's some factory plan is planning there in 5 years, and they're already working on that direction.
Absolutely. Yeah, and then I mean something else too. A big thing, at least here in Winston, we just had a major highway, just got reworked and connected some different things. That's a huge thing too. They if you're talking 5 and 10 years out, they've got an idea of the industry, but you're probably not going to get like Toyota's coming, right? Or like if it's something huge like that, maybe, but they're not going to say, "Hey, Chick-fil-A is opening on this corner, Trader Joe's open on this corner." The things we like to see. However, it will show you highways, and that's always a major thing. If there's a bit of a cluster at a certain place, right, and they're smoothing that out, you can bet traffic count's going to increase, which means large development's going to increase, and that continues to reign true as well when there's highways and such coming through.
Just to add a little bit more to that, usually they don't plan those highways and roads for no reason. If they already do that, they're already expecting growth, right? The city already making those analysis 5 years ahead, 10 years ahead. They measuring how many traffic, how many cars going through the road. They measuring the city growth and development. They collaborating with the city and say, listen, we need this additional road, we need this additional expansion to this road, so we can, because we expect explosive growth in the city, and now this is what happens. And this is your markers, right? That you can understand, okay, something great is planned, and maybe the area is not there where it's upcoming, but prices are still cheap. But if the road's building, okay, there's something's going on here.
Absolutely.
At least make a research.
Absolutely. You're 100%. You are 100% correct. I see that a lot. Like, hey, it's in the path of progress, or it's an up and coming area, right? There are, if you look and you know what to look for, there are indicators. When people say, hey, this is an up and coming area, there's something that'll tell you it's an up and coming area, right? Whether it's a house that's been renovated or a strip of house that's been renovated, or a lot of times it's what we've been talking about. It's highways and roads. Hey, they're redoing this strip of highway. They're widening this. Well, there's a reason for that, right? They expect a lot of growth along there. So yeah, that's an excellent point.
And I want to come back a little bit to your mobile home parks and your industrial exposure. Can you tell a little bit more about your industrial properties, and why did you decide to buy a retail strip mall? I mean, this is something different, right, from what you have dealing with tenants, with residential tenants. Now you have dealing with businesses. Is it a better strategy? Would you recommend someone looking in that direction, or would you or now you want to focus on mobile home parks, and why?
Yeah, for sure. So, we'll start with the industrial section. So I've bought two different industrial buildings personally, and then some other industrial and retail dealings with partners. The reason we went into that one, to be 100% honest with you, Alex, is it was just a deal. It was just a good cost basis. So I have a really good friend of mine who is strictly an industrial retail broker. He's a CCIM, anyways, he's got a lot of great designations. He's a kick-ass broker. And he brought me the deal. We ran over all the numbers. It seemed like a very feasible strategy, and we hopped in and got it done. A couple of things, I think, for someone like me who learned a lot of real estate, kind of boots on the ground, just kind of figuring it out, maybe not doing stuff quite proper, but it worked. That did not fly at all in the industrial retail sector. Everything's by the book. There's layers of attorneys between communication and all that. So that was a big difference. But I mean, overall, the strategy is similar in the building that we purchased. So it's not a single industrial building. It's a retail strip, I guess. We turned one space into 12 little key man offices that people rent from us. So kind of like a common, and then there's some industrial attached to some of the retail on some of the larger spaces, but it's still cut up into I think we've got 18 or 19 different tenants out there. So it's still cut up between quite a few different tenants.
Were you able to refinance it as well? Do you still hold it cash flowing?
No, we were not able to refi. So we bought this one in 2022, and you know what happened, 2022 and following, rates went up. So we did our things correctly. And this is a whole other story about investors and why I've made a pivot from that. But yeah, essentially we got rents up actually a little bit past our projections, cap rates decompressed. And we had a conversation with the investors and said, hey, do you guys want to stay in or you want to get bought out? Because I was really open either way. And they elected to get cashed out of it. So we're currently under contract to sell that property. But I mean, in the meantime, cash flows. I mean, after debt payment and everything, it's probably $7-8 grand a month. It's a good property.
Yeah, it's great. I like how you tap into different. You have diversification at your core.
Yeah.
You try on all different assets and you understand what works for you, what's not, and you pivot in and you learn something new every day. But you making it happen.
Yeah.
You still have successful property. You still it's cash flow and it's still working for you.
Yeah.
And what I like what you mentioned is industrial, is retail, right? In this case, is nothing different from a commercial residential property, right? It's evaluated by the income it's producing. People are missing this point a lot of time in multifamily. I think, okay, it's apartments and how we're going to evaluate it. It's still income producing assets. So when you evaluate this property, it still evaluates as a business, basically.
Absolutely.
How much income it bring into the table, how much expense it have. Now you have your net operating income, and now you have cap rate in the area to understand the value of the property, how much it's trading right now. And the same as retail, right? You have, instead of just the people that you deal in on day-to-day residential, you still have people, the businesses. And every person represents a business, and you deal with the business directly, that have track records, they have income. And in this sense, if the business is established as a long-term flowing, it could be more easier to deal with those, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yep, absolutely. It's interesting too, man. Industrial is it's a different animal. It's a different beat. I mean, it's a totally different business. So, a lot of the I guess truths stay the same. Real estate truths stay the same. But in terms of the business, how it's run, timelines is a huge thing. Things just take long. Whether it's rehab, whether it's getting a tenant, whether it's the length the tenant's there, whatever. There's just different structures, and there's also the question on how the property itself is set up. So it's just, there's a lot of different structures there, and it was a very, very different animal. But I think
concept is the same, right?
Right,
You still renovate the property, you place the best tenant you can find for the biggest buck, and then you bring as much income as possible at this particular box that you bought, right?
Absolutely.
For someone new to investing, what would you recommend? Look into commercial properties, like explore mobile park strategy, or maybe taking a step back and start with residential like you did, right? Smaller step, smaller feasible, actionable item.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that most new people should start out with whatever's the least path of resistance for them. So, and to most, that's going to be residential real estate, right? If for some reason you have a background in something else or have connections in something else, I'd recommend going with that. The reason I say that is because I think it's really important. If somebody's wanting to get into real estate, I think it's really important to get out there and get your first deal. I wouldn't worry about going big. That's my opinion. Not off the jump. You can if you want. Fail hard, fail fast. Some people like that. And that was kind of my philosophy going in as well. But I've since pulled back, and don't do stuff like that with private money in that capacity anymore. Just because I think it just added a lot of headache and a lot of questions and didn't lead to a lot of results, honestly. We had results, but it wasn't worth what I was putting in. But I think it's vital that a new investor hop in, get a deal done, at least one, and be able to hang their hat on something. And then I think, kind of like we talked about at the start of the podcast, I think at that point it becomes real as well. And, they're able to internalize that, that's very important.
Taking a step, right? Get on your path and try, and it's all different for everyone, right? Everyone has different risk tolerance on different kind of assets, because sometimes a few tenants cannot pay the rent. Now you have to go through process through eviction, and depends how many units you have. It could be that you have to add money to the property to keep it afloat.
Yeah.
And it could be very stressful. Absolutely. So that's why you need to understand exactly where you get in and get in as much education as possible. Now, to mitigate most of the risks when buying some real estate asset, is a commercial, residential, it's important to find a good broker, right? You mentioned to me that you have a killer broker, that he has multiple designations and super smart and super advanced, who helped you with this industrial property, and you lean on his expertise. What would you think would be the character on how people can find such brokers, that superhero brokers that can guide you through the deal and actually be a good help for you?
That's a great question, man. Honestly, it's a lot of trial and error. It depends on what you're looking for as well, right? Because for someone like myself, I don't necessarily need somebody to help me through the transaction, right? I'm a broker myself and I'm well versed. However, what I would love is access to more deals. So for me, I'm going to go find the young, hungry broker who may not know a lot. He may have never done a deal. I don't know, but he's hungry. He's sitting down and he's cold calling, right? That's the broker that I want personally. on my team. I think, it's certainly a process of qualification or disqualification, I guess, where, you'll talk to a lot of brokers. It's also important to maintain that relationship in the same way that most investors have multiple brokers. Every broker has multiple investors, right? So I think it's important to think about what you're going to do to set yourself apart and be the person that does. Speaking from a broker's perspective, a lot of that has to do with decision making, being sure about what you're doing and who you're transacting with in terms of your investors, partners, etc. And then from there, doing what you say, right? I think that's important. But it's a relationship that's built over time, Alex.
Yeah, for sure. But how exactly it helps? Because it's open market, so it's a listed property on the open market, and everyone can reach out and buy, regardless if you have relationship with a broker or not. Correctly. So in what instances the relationship with said broker would help him to get the deal, in any case?
You're talking about the investor, help him to receive the deal?
Yep.
Yeah, I think first and foremost, it's staying in front of him. It's building that relationship. You got to stay front of mind, right? So if someone's calling me every week, even though it may be annoying at times, it's they're front of mind. They don't have an option, right? It's going to be front of mind, and they're the person I'm going to think of when I'm looking at deals, when a deal comes across my plate, whatever. I think for most brokers, to be honest, and I know this is going to beg another question, but I think most brokers, to be honest, are going to go with who have closed deals before. And so that first deal, I think, is tough, and I think that's call every broker on LoopNet, call every broker that has something listed and say, hey, saw this property, see you're a multifam. This one right here, shoot me the details, or hey, don't shoot me the details. This one won't work, but here's what I'm looking for. What do you have? Most of these brokers have some pocket listings, right? And they're just shooting them to their guys. And I think the question is, how do you become one of their guys? I think you become one of their guys through follow-up, through building that relationship, through being a person that a broker wants to do business with, because it is a 2, 3, 4 month business relationship, right? And I think being that person, then once you have a deal or two under the belt, I think you're probably good. You'll be on that
For sure.
list.
No, I like it. I think it's important because even if he lists the property on the market, he can call his list first and say, hey guys, this is a fresh property, home run deal. You can jump on board if you want. The seller needs to move it quickly. And now you have opportunity to be at the seat, one of the first people who saw the deal.
Even furthermore, and this is speaking from me, but like if my brother brings me a deal and says, Ed, I want this listed, I'm going to tell him, cool, shoot me the information you got. There's going to be a 2 or 3 week, month-long period where I'm gathering information, building the packet, taking photos, getting ready for that to list on market. Over the course of that, call it month before I'm bringing it to market, I'm sending the deal to everybody I know, right? All my good people. And if they pass on it, then I'm going to take it to market. But if it's a good deal, if it's a proper property, typically it's never going to see the market.
Build your relationship, folks.
There you go.
Talk to people, get out there and start networking. I think it's important, and I 100% agree with you. Listen, Edwin, looking ahead, what's next to you personally and professionally in terms of your growth, in terms of your investment and your asset goals?
Absolutely, man. Thanks for asking. I think so. This is another pivot. So sorry, but what honestly, my number one focus right now is building manufactured housing. So last year, I got involved in essentially me and my business partner were buying multifamily mobile home parks together. We got involved in building manufactured housing. So what that looks like is my partner has a dealer's license, so we'll buy a manufactured house, like a double wide, straight from a manufacturer. We'll pull it onto a lot and we'll spec it out and we'll sell it on market. FHA, VA, conventional, any of those. That's a piece of the industry that I don't think is being utilized properly. I think you're going to see it become more and more. I could do a whole episode on just manufactured housing and the trends.
I think we'll need to do that.
We might have to, but yeah, honestly, like that's probably one of the things I'm most excited about right now. In the meantime, I still have my feelers out, right? And I'll continue to buy several properties per year, and I'll continue to run the brokerage part of things. But in terms of where my effort is and where my excitement is going forward, it's building this business, this manufactured housing business.
Manufactured housing business. So you're going to be a manufacturer of mobile home parks,
No,
or you're going to be
essentially what I'm doing is I'm buying a lot. You think like a spec builder building houses, right? It's the exact same thing as that, but I'm sourcing the home from Clayton, Champion, all that. It's all brand new. So what it allows me to do is while that home's being built, it allows me to prep the lot. I get in a lot quicker, and my numbers are typically better than those that are building houses, at least here in my area.
So this is going to be like single family houses. This is going to be large houses. It's not mobile home park kind of
No,
deal.
this is
It's now you build an actual housing.
correct. Yeah, this is single family housing. And our goal is to do so. Last year, we kind of tested the model, did a couple of them, sold them off. This year is the first year we're taking it a little bit larger. So we're looking to do 30 houses this year. And in the process of building out our teams, getting our GC, making some key hires, probably going to come a little later on this year. But looking at our hires for that company. Yeah. And then the investing is still very, very much something I do. However, I'll do a couple of flips a year, just me, just Edwin doing them himself. Apart from that, I partner with my buddy and we own some real estate together, and it just helps share that workload. And then same goes for the building business. That's me and him as well. Yeah, it helps share the workload, but really that is where my number one focus is. The goal eventually, once I'm a little further along, is to develop full mobile home parks and be able to build for rent. But in the meantime, it's built to sell.
Have you seen those boxable new houses that they presented? That they've started with self-storage units, and now they I think they're licensed to do actual homes.
I have, yeah, the ones with like the walls that come up with foldable
Yep,
and stuff.
yep.
Yeah, I have. That's a really interesting concept. That's a really interesting concept. I have a friend of mine that's going that up in the mountains with some Airbnbs, but I don't have it
Interesting.
personally.
Yeah, I would like to know experience of that too. It's really cool. It shows, and if it's can withstand all this nature issues, then it could be a good opening for the same building affordable housing in the same as Florida and other parts. I think affordable housing will be a big thing moving forward because the shortage is still here.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's. I think it's a really cool concept. I think there's a gap in the market, Alex, where new home builders are building and where those home prices are versus where actual first-time home buyers, or maybe a lot of like in my area out in Lexington where I build, a lot of blue collar that maybe can't. Starter homes around here are $325. And I'm selling these at $240, $260.
Wow.
There's nothing down there at that price point, right? For a 1,500 square foot, it's like $240. And there's nothing around here like that. And we've had no issue getting rid of them. We've pre-sold some of them. And I think we'll continue to see a wave be pushed towards that. I believe that is the new low income housing for homeowners. And I think that and mobile home parks are going to be the future.
How much does they build it for? I mean, it's very cheap. I mean, if you're selling it for $240, what is the price per square foot?
So my build cost, it's about $100 a foot, give or take. That's for the home, the land, that's for everything. So from when I signed the contract to buy the piece of land to when I close the deal, my all-in's like 160, 165, give or take.
Very good. Those numbers are really good.
Yeah, it's
Edwin, it was a great session. I have final question for you. If someone wants to connect with you, what's the best way to reach out to you or maybe talk about your brokerage business?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So I'm not super active on social medias. I do have an Instagram. You guys are more than welcome to reach out. It's edwin.byler. It's edwin.byler on Instagram, Facebook as well. Edwin Byler. Yeah, that's the best way right there.
We'll drop it in the comments and we'll put it on the screen, so make it easier.
Wonderful.
Edwin, it's been great having you on the show. Your story shows the power of combining active brokerage and real estate investing. You're taking the best out of two worlds, and I think it's incredible that you dive in on every single line of investing, and it's incredible. Thank you for sharing your story. I think it's important for people to understand it's nothing wrong with progressing. You don't have to stick to one particular asset, but you can move from single family. Now you can move mobile home parks, and you can try different strategies, whatever work for you and inspire you to grow and develop. I think that's what's important.
I agree with you.
Very good. To everyone tuning in, thank you for being on this journey with us. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and as always, keep moving forward.